It being 5 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Agenda review and disposition.
I'm all set, Madam Chair.
We have the minutes, the public and non-public minutes from October 17th. Unless there are any corrections or amendments, they stand approved as written.
It's all right there.
Privilege of the floor. Ben.
All right, hi everyone. So not as many announcements as last week, so that should be good. But my first is to welcome, we have 21 students here, obviously from PBRSB. They're here to complete their civics. One of their civics projects they have throughout the year is that they have to go to an elected meeting, so that can be select board, school board. So we have a large group tonight, I think kind of 21, and this is a mixture of civics 3 and civics honors. So welcome everyone.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Just a few updates. On October 18th, there was a Quincy Bog trip for the AP Bio classes. That went very well. Lots of kids had lots of fun walking around the bog, and that was obviously before the big storm, so they got to see how that fared before the storm. And I think they might be going a later time, so they might be able to see how that affected the ecosystem. So they enjoyed that. On October 20th, we had a collaborative jazz band concert with our jazz band here and with the Campton Elementary School. That went very well. It's always, people always love to come out and see the arts, and we've had a collaborative concert a few years in a row now, so that went very well. People were excited about that. The day after, on October 21st, we had a History Bowl competition for our Grand State Challenge Quiz Bowl team, and that was, I believe it was hosted at Hanover. And they ended up winning. They won, they came in first place in the state. So they were very excited about that. And they've done well every year, so hopefully they have another good year coming. On October 27th, there was a college visit, sponsored by the guidance department at UNH. The seniors had priority for this trip, but juniors could sign up. And that went very well. Students were very excited to go and explore UNH. A lot of kids, this was some of their first college visits, so they got to see how that was like, so they enjoyed that. The following day, on October 28th, that was a very busy day for sports. On that day, we had the Division II, Division I, and Division III, but Division II cross-country meet for both boys and girls. The volleyball quarterfinals and the soccer quarterfinals. The cross-country meet, both teams were below 5th place, so they won't be moving on to the meet of champions. And the volleyball and soccer teams, unfortunately, they both lost. Soccer, who was playing Wyndham, who was seeded number 1, they lost 1-0, and volleyball lost 3-0. So they'll be out of the fall competitions, and I think that about brings down all of our fall sports besides football, because field hockey is also out. On October 31st, we were supposed to have a Red Cross blood drive on Halloween held here, but that was canceled obviously due to the storm, and we didn't have school that day here, so we couldn't host it. And that date was postponed, and that date is still to be decided. On November 2nd, there was the All New England Choral Festival, and that was hosted at PSU by Columbus State University, and that went very well. It's chamber singers, so like a cappella groups, people who came here and sang for you guys last year. They came to PSU, and chamber singer groups from all over New England came to PSU, and we sang together in one big choir. They had, I think, about 350 students in the choir, so that was a great experience. We all had a lot of fun. So that went very well. On November 3rd, the quarter closed. So that was last Friday. On November 4th, we had the Rotary Penny Sale, and that went very well from what I heard. A bunch of people said it went well. That day there was also a home football game, and that was our quarterfinals. And, that was our first playoff game, not the quarterfinals, sorry. And that was a win, so we were all very excited about that. And on November 5th, there was the state meet for spirits, so cheerleading. And our team came in 6th place. They were all excited about that. Upcoming on November 8th, so tomorrow, we have a math meet at Merrimack Valley. On November 9th, there are both field hockey and volleyball awards. That is also the school musical Year in Town's opening night. November 10th through 12th is Year in Town, and the other nights of the shows, and students in the musical are very excited. We have our first big run with everything together tonight with all of our props, so we're very excited. We're hoping that will go well. And on November 12th, there's also the Senior Citizen Luncheon, and many of them often come to the Year in Town or the musical after that, so we're excited to host them. On November 13th is the day, and it kicks off Operation Teddy Bear, and that's kids donate money to get their names written on a little teddy bear, and all that money ends up going to buying teddy bears for patients at Spear Memorial Hospital. And that's a big community service project that my junior class has been running for the last 3 years, so we're excited for that to happen again this year. On November 15th will be the Cross Country Sports Awards. Students are excited about that. Cross country runners are excited about that. On November 18th is the Holiday Craft Fair, and that will be held here, I believe in the gymnasium. And on November 20th, the winter sports will start. I'm not sure how many of them are practicing that week, because it's a little bit of a hectic week because that's the week of Thanksgiving. So we have a half day, I believe, on Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday we don't have school. So I'm not sure how many students will be and how many teams will be starting, but November 20th is the set date for winter sports to start. And I believe, that's all my announcements.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate it. Do I hear a motion to go into non-public for contractual issues? Tim, seconded by Walter. Sam?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I just wanted to update you. Obviously, we had quite a storm, and we missed 2 days of school due to the storm. And let me tell you the reasons for. We spoke with the Public Works folks in most of your towns, and also had the opportunity. I visited all the towns and talked with either the police, Public Works, or stopped by the town hall. And the real issue was the down power lines and the back roads. There was clearly some issues with back roads. Buses couldn't get there. Because of your bus routes being on main trunk lines, mostly state highways, we knew that we could go after a couple days at the high school. The elementaries were a little more tricky because of the kids and the bus routes. But by the time Tuesday afternoon rolled around, all towns but Campton we want to get back into school. And then just if you could excuse those folks who don't come to school because of issues like that, which obviously we would. So all the towns except Campton just said, let's get going on Wednesday morning. But I want to tell you how hard the Public Works folks in all of your communities work, the police and fire, first responders. Some people were even given boat rides, from what I understand. But that's just anecdotal that I heard. But everybody was out there really doing some great things, and the upside of that is, that these communities are really great together, and your departments work well together between communities. So that went well, and everybody got back in on Wednesday morning except Campton. They came back in on Friday, but that's a Campton issue. In January, for scheduling purposes, Martin Luther King Day falls on that third Monday, so it sort of throws our committee meetings off and the whole thing. So I guess what we could do is we could do the second meeting in January could be the Tuesday the 16th, and try and do committees and the full board that day. Or we can just bounce it to the next week and do the committees on the 22nd and the board on the 23rd. So the easier of the two, quite frankly, is to bounce it a week and do the 20th and the 23rd, the 22nd and 23rd. So, but it would be your call.
Can people do those dates, move 15 to 22, 16 to 23?
Yes.
Looks like
Is
it.
it still Tuesday, Monday?
Monday the 22nd and Tuesday the 23rd in January.
Oh, January.
All right, so let's go ahead and do that.
Thank you very much. And the rest of my report, Madam Chair, is contained within the discussion items.
All right, thank you. Mr. Parsons?
I'm good. I think my protege covered everything, if not the kitchen sink. He did forget, though, we had the pleasure, due to the storm, the NHIA had scheduled a quarterfinals Division III volleyball match at Plymouth University. And with the approval of the superintendent, he allowed me to host the event here. And I want to really commend the staff and my administrative team. We had close to almost 800 people in that gym. Very orderly, come and go. And the first game was at 5, I think, between Winnisquam and Campbell. And the second game was local, Newfound, and Interlakes, and extremely well behaved, all 4 schools. But administration of the athletics, Jim Carey and crew, did a marvelous job hosting that. Parent-teacher night Tuesday. Hopefully I'll get these grades out tomorrow. We are under a new grading system, Power School. So it's an adventure for all of us. We hope to get them out in the mail tomorrow so they're ready, because obviously Friday they're off. So we're scrambling to get that in the mail, but I think we can get that accomplished. I know he talked about the musical. I think Janice has around 110 seniors. They will be entertaining here in this room on Sunday, and they'll enjoy the musical. We look forward to that. And I'll be sending a pet alert probably tomorrow. And continue on the NEAC. We're really moving forward on that, guys. Committees, I'm going to commend the teachers. They're working hard during department meetings and faculty meetings during our time to come up with this new evaluation accreditation system that we're doing. And I'll be sending the survey to the students. The students will be taking it. There's a timeline I laid out today. And the parent conference night, I'm going to have a lot of areas, different areas. I'm going to try to recruit as many parents as I can to have them fill. It's all online. And we'll also send it out by email. But that's where a lot of we get our evidence from the students, from the staff, and the parents. But that process is going well. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. So facilities, policy, and budget, and program and staffing all have their next meeting on Monday, November 20th, beginning at 5 o'clock here. Barbara, is there an update to SCC?
Yes, we met last evening, a very well-attended meeting, except our attendance from representatives of the different towns leaves a lot to be desired. We need to, I don't know what we need to do, just keep appealing to sending districts for representation to SCC, and we need to document that we are trying for the sake of showing that to NEASC, because that's part of what we're supposed to be doing. The meeting went very well. We began with a discussion on the freshman seminar. That's going well, but it's kind of on a delay right now because
Senior seminar.
Senior seminar, I'm sorry, because we took a survey and responded to it and had the results last night, but there were only 13 that really responded. Students want to take a survey to their classmates, and we support that. So we're putting the rest of our discussion on hold for a little while, and we spent the rest of the meeting on discussion of NEASC, which was on our agenda. So our agenda went as planned, but we hoped to do more with the senior seminar. So that's just taking a little delay so the students can do their part, and we'll continue. NEASC is just beginning with us, and that's going well as well. So, unless Melinda, you'd like to add to it.
All right, thank you. Discussion items.
Yes, Madam Chair. I handed out the assessment sheet for you. As you can see, Campton has not set their tax rate. That's the only outstanding town in it within all ascending schools. I did want to also highlight for you, I gave you all a list of the last 10 years, the history of the assessment. And I just want you to know that over the last 10 years, your assessment on an annual basis has increased 1.362%. And I will use Plymouth as an example. If you look at your assessment sheet here, and you go down to Plymouth, and you can see last year the assessment for last year in Plymouth was $2,862,000, and this year's is $2,886,000. That's an increase of $23,000 in the assessment to the town of Plymouth, 0.8245. So when the Plymouth folks get their tax bills and they say, we got a huge increase in our taxes, is all that spending in the schools, the assessment was up by the $28,000. The tax shock is coming from the revenue decreases from the state of New Hampshire in adequacy. That's where the shock is coming from on your side of the house. Now, Plymouth Elementary did have some significant spending increases in terms of the tax rate, but in terms of the high school, it is from adequacy being reduced by the state of New Hampshire. So I just want to clarify that in terms of educational programs and the spending that we can control, all of us can control here, that's the assessment, 0.8% in Plymouth. And then you can see the other districts. But most of the rate shock is for property tax towns, particularly Rumney, Wentworth, and Plymouth, is coming from adequacy being cut at the state level. The old, what we used to call foundation aid. And when the Supreme Court case, the latest case came out, when Dover and some of the southern towns said, we're not getting our adequacy per capita, and the courts ruled in their favor, the state did not increase the size of the pie. They merely then paid everybody what they're supposed to do and said, over time, the support that we've given property tax towns has got to go down in order for us to stay within our budget. So that's what's driving those rate increases in the property poor towns.
Just a question, is adequacy tied to your assessment? So in other words, as your assessment grows,
No.
does your adequacy
No,
decrease?
no,
Okay,
no.
so it's not
Adequacy is
related.
tied to
Okay.
the number of kids you have in school that have come from Wentworth and also the support that the state gives Wentworth for being a property poor town. And that's why the adequacy applied, Bernie, is down here. It's outside of the assessment equation. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that, because there's all kinds of things being said about, and it happens when tax bills go up in a community. So, but that's the reality of it. And again, as I said, there were spending issues at Plymouth Elementary School on top of loss of adequacy. But in the case of here, at the high school, that's not the case. It's loss of adequacy. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a support staff nomination after public. 9.3 is, as you know, we used to do the TAP survey to get data. And quite frankly, the state law changed so that now people need to have a positive response rather than just writing in and saying, I don't want my child to take it. They need to write in and tell us, I want my child to take any non-academic survey. So that means that our pool probably, given how people respond to filling out forms, our pool would be severely. So the one non-academic survey that was not addressed, in fact, it was addressed to say, everyone, you don't need to do this for the National Youth at Risk Survey. That's exempt from the new permission slip law. So what we're proposing to do then is to take the statewide Youth at Risk survey so we can get some data about Plymouth Regional High School. So what we did in the packet I put together for you is showed you the draft of what would be the letter home, the warning that there is some pretty interesting questions involved in it, and also an opportunity to folks to view the survey, and then they still have the right to say, I don't want my child to take it.
Mark, will we still be able to ask our questions?
No, it's their questions. The one thing they are doing now, Ross, that they didn't used to do, they have statewide data, and they used to not break it down to schools. Now there's a subset of questions they will break down. This is the results from Plymouth Regional High School. But it is not the broad scope, and they're not our questions about security and things that we like to know. That's the real downside of this. But I think the data is important for us just from a sense of what programs we should be offering and where we should focus the limited resources that we have. I know that Katie is a great partner of ours in this, but also our guidance folks, Mike Currier, this year we've made a real push on mental health awareness. We had Chief Justice Broderick here, not only in the summer for faculty and staff, but also we had a full school assembly that was very well received. So we're really focusing on those issues. But the data that we get really helps us focus on where we will apply our resources. We're not looking for who's doing what to who. We're looking at trends and big picture issues so that we can deal with the data and some of the issues that we have as a society.
If I may, I thought you said it had to be a positive response.
Except
No,
in the terms of
Okay.
this is
So
the
we're
exempted.
continuing the old form that said, I do not want my
Right,
child. Okay.
right.
Gotcha. Thanks.
This is the only exception in the whole state, and I think it was because, quite frankly, there's so much federal money that comes in, and the federal government wants this data. So I would need a positive vote to go ahead with this, because we'd be administering it in December. But I think we've laid out the timetable pretty well for folks to say, I don't want my child informed, or I'd like to look at the instrument before I decide whether my child is involved in it.
So do I hear a motion to allow the administration to go ahead and participate in the youth, administer the Youth Risk Behavior Survey?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Second, all those in favor? Opposed? And abstaining?
Thank you very much. The next is a draft memo put together by the Superintendent of Schools and SAU 2. And SAU 2, as you know, represents the Ashland School District, which sends its high school students to us. And both Mary Moriarty and I sat and talked about, over the last year, we've talked about the relationship between Ashland School District and Pemmy Baker, to the point where some people felt they should come into SAU 48. In long conversations about that, decision was made by the Ashland School Board to remain in SAU 2. But they wanted to clarify, the school board in Ashland wanted to clarify the relationship between the Ashland School District and the Pemmy Baker School District. And so this is a draft memo of understanding that I wanted to introduce to you tonight. You'll send it off to committee for folks to take a good look at. But both Superintendent Moriarty and I and Bruce took a look at it, and we're pretty happy with, we made some adjustments in it, so we're pretty happy with the document, but also, obviously, it's the document that is between the two school boards, quite frankly. So I just wanted to introduce it tonight and have you send it off, probably to policy and budget, because it would be a policy. And so it would go off to that committee for you to review. And I know some of you have some questions about the parties, who's involved in it, and that committee meeting would be a good opportunity for you to walk through it paragraph by paragraph. So merely an introduction tonight, Madam Chair.
So that will be discussed the 20th?
Yes.
At policy
Yeah.
and budget, okay. Any other business? Board member concerns? Do I hear a motion to go into non-public for personnel issue, contractual issue, collective bargaining, and I guess that's it, and collective bargaining? So moved, or the second?
Yes.
Sam, Ross?